Hi guys, I hope you're really well. This is a request video. The camera's at a bit of a funny angle, but well, my face is at a bit of a funny angle. So I've covered this topic before, but my girl Troy sent me a message. So Troy is somebody I've worked with, taught, enjoyed seeing. I met her in London. She's a very transatlantic. And she's a teacher, and she asked me a question. So let me just see if I can play that. 1 second. So Troy says,
I have a question from one of my students. When we say that we like something, the instructions in the lesson tell us that we should put the definite article in front of the noun that it introduces. One of my students wants to know, if we say j'aime écouter de la musique, why do we use the de? And why don't we say j'aime écouter la musique?
so if you could hear that, I hope you could hear that. Basically, Troy has a lovely voice. Troy says, why do we say j'aime écouter de la musique rather than j'aime écouter la musique? So, what we're basically talking about is the difference between using le, la, les, or le if it goes straight into a vowel, or an aspirated H, so L apostrophe, and then a word. Side note, not all words beginning with H are joined. So, for example, some hatred, de la haine, but that's a separate thing. So, that's our question. Why do we sometimes use the le, la, les, le, and why do we sometimes use the du, de la, des, etc.? Now, let's be very clear. Le, la, les, on their own, mean the word the definite article, okay? And if in English you have a the, use one of those in French. No problem. So, for example, if you in your English heard the word the, you are going to use one of le, la, or les. If your le or your les followed a de, then you are going to obviously use du or des. So de le will become du if it means the, or de les will become des if the les meant the. If, side note, the le or the les were a pronoun, as in they meant him or them in a direct object way, so for example, I've just seen him, je viens de le voir, or je viens de les voir, I've just seen them, then the le and the les would not join with the de and would not give me du and des. But generally then, if in English the English you're using, you hear the word the, French has got everything that you need. And notice that this the feels very specific. I'm looking for a friend. Which friend? The friend that I went out with last night or something. The feels very specific, hence the term definite article. If in French you need the word some, and I'm not talking about when you would use pronominal forms like en, or quelque, which is a few, which will kind of work for a some in a plural. Generally, whether it's plural or singular, we will use du, so de plus le du, de la, des, or again, de le, de, new word, l apostrophe. So if I've got the word some in my English before a noun, I am safe. So some coffee, du café, because it's le café, so du café. Some children, des enfants, because it's les enfants, hence des enfants. So in other words, to repeat, if you've got a the or a some prior to your noun in your English, then French will take care of you. It's got everything that you need. So our dilemma is, which do we use when we've not got anything before the noun? We've not got an article before the noun. Now let's be very clear, there's different kind of articles. We've got possessive adjectives. So my face, my intelligence, my... that's not me being arrogant, but just you'll see why I use intelligence in a minute, because you can say some intelligence and it's a singular thing. My this cell phone, this mobile, his, the indefinite article singular, So there are other words that will go before a noun. So we're talking about a situation where there's none of those. We're also saying, caveat, that we allow the word de, de, on its own after expressions like beaucoup de, moins de, fewer than, not less if it's plural things, remember. Trop de, so fewer people, moins de personnes, more people, plus de personnes, no more people, plus de personnes, fewer people, too many people, trop de personnes, etc. So all of this warm-up is to say, what do we do if we find ourselves in a situation where we have none of those before our noun? For example, apples are delicious, or I like to listen to music, as the example goes, or journalists are, now I always use a naughty word, so I'm going to say journalists are interesting, okay? Or I'm going to buy apples. So this is my solution, my one-stop shop. When you hear a the in English, French has everything you need. When you need a some in English, French has everything you need. Yeah, du, de, la, de. Yeah. When you have nothing in the French, don't use a de. Then you need to make the following decision. If you are talking across the board generally about the noun you're discussing, then you will go with the option. That means when there's nothing in the English, but you are talking across the board generally about that noun, then you will go with the option. I know that feels the opposite to when we use a the normally, because that feels very specific. Which apple? The apple. The apple. It feels more specific than an apple or some apples. But when you are talking across the board generally, you will use a the. When you are not talking across the board generally, you will use a some, Troy. So for example, music is fantastic for when you want to fall asleep. You're speaking generally about music. Now, I'm not saying that a kind of Metallica or a Slipknot album is particularly a lullaby, but une berceuse, as we say in French, but basically, generally, we're saying, oh yeah, music generally is good when you want to fall asleep. That's general. La musique est fantastique quand on veut s'endormir, on wants to fall asleep. Because you're speaking generally. So, where apples are fantastic for health. Les pommes, so nothing in the English, les pommes sont fantastiques pour la santé. I'm going to the store to buy apples. I'm going to the shop to buy apples. I am not talking across the board about all apples. Je vais au magasin pour acheter des pommes. So one of the little tricks is, could I insert a some? I'm going to the shop to buy some apples, in which case that will normally solve it for you. So, with Troy's example, I like to listen to music. Is it music generally, or is it more of a, is it not across the board all music, or is it a kind of slightly more specifically aimed? So, j'aime écouter de la musique because it's kind of like a representational partitive some music. I like to listen to some music. Now, in English, we just say I like to listen to music. So, for example, I like chocolate. Pretty generally. Yeah? J'aime le chocolat. Yeah? This evening I'm going to buy chocolate. I mean, I'm a boring old thing. It'll be sugar-free and dairy-free, but there you go. So I'm going to buy chocolate. Je vais acheter du chocolat. Because it's not chocolate across the board in this case. It's not every bar of chocolate. I'm not generally referring to every bar of chocolate. Journalists are interesting. Journalists are interesting people. You know, les journalistes sont des gens intéressants. Notice I would then need to bring in the they because they're not all interesting people. So you get to hear both in the same sentence. Journalists are interesting people. There's no the or some in either of those in English, but les journalistes sont des gens intéressants. Des gens intéressants if you were doing the liaison. So, for example, you need patience for this. Yeah? Il faut de la patience, not la patience. People will occasionally say it kind of colloquially, but generally you're not speaking about patience in general. Yeah? courage, du courage. Yeah, it won't be le courage because that would be speaking about the quality of courage in general. Intelligence, il faut de l'intelligence. You need intelligence. Il faut avoir de l'intelligence. Not l'intelligence. Which some people would say, but de l'intelligence is better French because you're not speaking about intelligence generally. So I wasn't being arrogant earlier when I thought of intelligence. It was me thinking of an example of a single noun that you can do this with. So I'll make my point again. If you are talking across the board generally about anything, you will go with the word the. And when there's nothing in the English, and if you're not talking across the board, then you will go with one of the du, de la, des options. So for example, a glass of water, un verre d'eau. Because there's a de there, so that allows us to go into the noun eau, un verre d'eau. Water, yes please, you wouldn't say l'eau, because you're not saying all water, you're saying water, so I guess you could think of it as some water, but you don't want to have to do that trick every time. De l'eau, je veux de l'eau, okay? Garlic, you know, I'm going to buy garlic, je vais acheter de l'ail. Yeah, it wouldn't be l'ail, that would be the garlic, like I'm going to buy the garlic that Troy recommended for this recipe. Yeah, je vais acheter l'ail que Troy m'a recommandé pour cette recette, because that would be the specific garlic, like maybe a particular, I don't know, a particular type. So that's why we have de la musique rather than la musique. You will hear la musique, but strictly speaking, du, de la, des is better when not speaking across the board. I hope this has been useful, Troy, and take care.